Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name's Kirsty Salisbury, I'm the host of your show, and I hope that you'll find great value and insight as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. Episodes are released weekly, and you may wish to join me over on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or on YouTube for our live events where you can interact with the guests on the show. There's also the online community over at www.letstalkneardeath.com. But until then, let's do this. Let's talk near death. Hello, and welcome to 2021 on the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. I have been chomping at the bit to get these episodes out. I am so excited to have you here joining me. It is February the 1st when this episode has been released. Unless you're in the VIP group, you're a VIP subscriber, and you would have received this a week early in advance of this going out public. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just coming back from a beautiful break that I had. I've had nearly 8 weeks off. We've got our big summer holidays here in New Zealand. I've got my daughter home from school. She goes back in about a week, and it's been wonderful. We've had the sun. It's been really hot. We had Christmas. We had New Year's. And it's just been a really beautiful time to spend time with the family and reflect on saying goodbye to 2020 for a start, but welcoming in all of the new things that are coming in for 2021. So wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you get loads of value out of this podcast series. I love it. I hope that you do too. We've got some amazing stories coming up. So I've pre-recorded already the entire next season of episodes. We've got some amazing stories. We've got some first-timers coming in. We've got some people who maybe haven't shared very much. And it's going to be really exciting to release those episodes. I'm also doing some live sessions over on YouTube and via the Facebook page, the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or the Kirsty Salisbury YouTube page. You can go there, become a subscriber there, because that enables you to get the notifications of when I'm going live. We did a live session with Jake Cooper recently. He released his book, which was really fun to go live and do that with him. So I want to do a little bit more of that. We've got Andy Petro coming up. Now, he is such a treasure. Andy Petro, he had his near-death experience in 1955, and it is well worth tuning in to hear his perspectives. And the other great thing is if you're coming to join the live sessions, you get to interact with us. So you get to ask questions, you can show support, you can just be involved in that conversation. Listen to it on the go, exactly the same as you do the recorded ones, but you get to be able to be involved in those sessions too. We've got some Q&A sessions coming up, so there'll be more solo episodes this year where I'm doing some research in the background. It'll be just incorporating some of that research, but also I'm going to be doing Q&A sessions. I get so many questions coming in, and I love it. So if you've got your questions around anything really, anything at all, send them in to me. I'll see if I can include those in our Q&A sessions. And like I said, there'll be more solo episodes coming through. So lots of great things to look forward to this year. Now, thank you to everybody who wrote to me. The last episode in the last season of 2020 was Edgar Casey, and this was a little bit of research that I had done around his amazing gifts after his near-death experience, and it was some information which I didn't necessarily know a whole lot about until I started to delve into it a little bit more. I had some amazing feedback. Dr. Mary Helen Hensley, who was on the show late last year, fantastic episode. I loved chatting with her. She actually wrote to me and said, my grandfather was friends with him or had some connection with him. So that was really cool to hear. Lots of other people have written in with little tidbits of information. And it's been amazing just to see how when I put the information out there, other people have little bits to add. And so Richard sent me an email. Richard said, I'm going to read this so I get this perfectly correct. Richard said, you talk about Edgar's first visit from the angel. I think he was 13 at the time, and I thought you might be interested to know a few more details about that visit. As I understand it, when the angel appeared, she, because I believe Edgar said or implied that the angel was in the form of a woman, she asked Edgar, what is the one thing that he wants the most? And Edgar, they're both paraphrasing by the way, he said that he wanted to help people, especially children. How amazing is that? 13 years old. So he said that the angel vanished without saying another word. And from that moment on, he had these powers to be able to help so many people. And it blows my mind just how that all took place. So Richard, thank you so much for writing in, giving us the tidbit, the little bit extra information there. If you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back and you can fill in some of the gaps that have been added with Richard's comments there. I found that episode so interesting. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more research that I've been doing. So a little bit more research around the early near-death experiences, because I had my own near-death experience, and that was, gosh, we're coming up, must be about 32 years ago, something like that. Anyway, quite some time ago. And I was started to think about all of the earlier ones. Like I said, Andy Petro's coming on. His was 1955. And I was starting to wonder, what were the earliest recorded near-death experiences? So I did a little bit of research, I did a little bit of Googling, and this information comes from many different sources. I have done, like I say, Googling. It comes from places like the Resuscitation Journal, from Live Science. There's a researcher called Bahar Golipur, and I really hope that I've said your name right. Anyway, she wrote a fantastic article talking about the very early near-death experiences. So what I have found is that one of the oldest experiences on record is Pierre Jean Dumont, who was born in France in 1733. So that is early, that is quite some time ago. He was a physician in the military, and he seems to be the person who had the first recorded near-death experience. He was 33 at the time, and he became unwell. He became unwell and got this fever, and the fever just didn't break. It kept getting worse and worse and worse to the point where he fell into what they said was a very deep sleep. So we don't know whether he was in a coma, he was unconscious, I assume. He was there for so long in this state of not being responsive that the medical staff around him became quite concerned for him. But he did wake up, and when he did, he recovered, and then he went on to write a book. Now, the book is called Anecdote de Médecin, and I really hope that I can say these French names and things right. But in this book, Monchot shared how he'd seen this pure and extreme light. But he was a physician, and he also went on to write about his conclusions. And he had this conclusion that too much blood flow to the brain could explain the mystical feelings that people report after coming back to consciousness. It was a pretty radical observation in those times, well, I assume it would be. And he speculated that from all of the near-death experiences that he had come across, that it was patients were left with little blood in their veins and in their skin, and that there was abundant blood flowing within the vessels within their brains, which was giving rise to the vivid and strong sensations. So, some interesting research. He wasn't widely known about. The book was a bit more of a medical book. It wasn't something that you just picked up for general reading. And it was very, there was very little known about this book until Dr. Philippe Charlier, a medical doctor and an archaeologist, unexpectedly uncovered this book. He was in an antique store at the time, and he came across this book and he saw the NDE in there and he thought, I'll have that. And so he picked it up. I think he paid, it was something like $1 or €1 or something very, very minimal back then. And he went through and he read all about this. What he did then, which is so interesting to me, and I just think, wow, that's a whole nother level. He then took this near-death experience from around about 1730 something, and he converted it. He compared it against the Grayson scale. And what he did is he made the comparison, and he saw that on the Grayson scale, this very early near-death experience came out with a score of about 12 out of 34. That's quite a high score. So it seems, I think it's normally around about 7 or so on the Grayson scale that would indicate that there's a very likely near-death experience has taken place. So I love that he did that. I love that he found out the score. And if you aren't sure what the Grayson scale is, please go and check it out. Just have a little Google, pop it into Google, Grayson scale. It is a scale that was made up by Dr. Bruce Grayson, who has done some amazing work in this field. He's done lots of research and has had a huge impact in the topic of near-death experiences coming to be a secular topic, which it totally is, because I don't know if you've been watching Netflix recently, but there is a show called Surviving Death. I loved episode 1. Go and have a look at episode 1. The IANDS is featured quite predominantly in that. That's the Association of Near-Death Studies, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Very interesting. So these topics really are coming to light, and I've seen that in the work that I'm doing. More and more newbies are coming onto the show, people who maybe don't have the research, don't have the understanding. So I would encourage you, go and find out what you can. Go and Google Dr. Bruce Grayson, Google the Grayson scale. Then that wasn't the end of it. So that was the very first recorded near-death experience. So then we fast forward quite a bit from 1733 to 1890. So in the 1890s, there was a French psychologist and epistemologist named Victoregger, and he was researching such experiences as a result of climbers. So he was part of a climbing group, and quite often climbers fall. And we know this because we've had a couple of climbers on the show with the episodes talking about their near-death experience after they've fallen off a cliff face or they've been caught in some climbing accident. So he was saying that quite often people were having these experiences when they had their climbing falls, they would come back and they would talk about the light, or they'd talk about this amazing experience they had. And so he started to share these stories of people who had had such experiences, and ones that had talked about life reviews during their fall, things which, again, probably didn't make a whole lot of sense back then, but really interesting. So then from there, 1890s, this set the stage later on for Celia Green, who in 1968 published an analysis of 400 first-hand accounts of out-of-body experiences. So we don't know whether they were all near-death experiences, but they were definitely out-of-body experiences, and we know from the research that's out there that sometimes they can be very, very similar. People talk about having spiritually transformative experiences. So she released this record of 400 first-hand accounts. In 1969, so that gap is getting smaller and smaller between things being released or information that we could track down. 1969, there was a Swiss-American psychiatrist and a pioneer in the near-death studies. It was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who had a massive impact on me personally. She's got her book on death and dying, and if you are going through some form of grief or you've got some major death moments happening within your family or within your life, I highly recommend her book. It was amazing. So on death and dying, what the dying have to teach doctors, nurses, clergy, and their own families. Amazing book. So these experiences were popularized by the work of Raymond Moody. So then in 1975, Raymond Moody came on the scene. He coined the term near-death experience. He is still today doing amazing work in this field. He released his foundational book, Life After Life, and that book would change the way that we see these experiences forever. The book has remained at the forefront of NDE research, and like I said, he's still doing some amazing work today. So you can see right back from 1733, big gaps in the research, big gaps in the information that's available. And then as we progress through, and then it starts to speed up, and then now the information is so readily available. There are so many good things out there that we can research. Like I said, I've got some episodes coming up. Can't wait to share them with you. But just putting this out there has really satisfied my own curiosity on when was the first one? When was the next one after that, how did this all start to flow? Because I know that 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information about these things. Raymond Moody's had such a massive impact in this, and also Dr. Bruce Grayson, so that's amazing. If you have any topics that you would like me to research, if there's anything more that you want to know about, perhaps there's near-death experiences from people who have now died and you want to know more about their experience, please just write in, let me know. I am always open to suggestions, and I really want to make sure that the podcast is relevant and that it is a place of learning. I'm all for sitting in the car or listening to podcasts, whatever, and just chewing them over. But I actually want this podcast to help us to really learn and progress in what we're here to do. So thank you so much for joining me. I feel like I've just rambled at you for so long. I don't even know how long this has been. But I shared the early experience. I am so grateful for you. Next week, episode 2. Now, this is a good one. This is a pre-recorded episode, so you don't need to listen to me babbling for some time. Simon Bowen from the UK. He is the Past Lives podcast host, and we had an amazing conversation. Simon's amazing. He's just so super interesting, and he's going to be coming up next week, so please tune in for that. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to like the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and if you want to find more about becoming a VIP subscriber, you can jump on over to www.letstalkneardeath.com. Thank you for tuning in. I wish you the most fabulous day. Don't forget to tell people about the podcast. Get these stories out there. Let's share them. Let's educate. Let me know how I can serve you, how I can help you. And until next week, when we have a fabulous, fabulous episode coming up, I wish you well and much blessings. See you later. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.